They crossed the line, lied, manipulated, humiliated you, and now they want to smile, make small talk, pretend none of it ever happened, as if you're the dramatic one for remembering the pain they caused. But here's the truth. Actions have consequences, and some people must feel those consequences to ever understand the damage they've done. In a world that rewards false apologies and punishes those who stand firm, it takes strength to say, enough. This video is not about vengeance. It's about clarity. It's about justice, the kind rooted in Stoic wisdom, because silence is not always peace, and forgiveness, without consequence, is not virtue. It's surrender. If you've ever felt torn between keeping the peace and protecting your dignity, listen carefully. These are the 5 reasons they must pay for their actions. Not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Not to punish them, but to free yourself. 1. Boundaries protect your self-worth. Every time you allow someone to mistreat you without consequence, you're not just giving them power over a single moment, you're giving them influence over your identity. You begin to question your value. You start to internalize their disrespect. And what was once a line you swore you'd never let anyone cross becomes a path they walk freely, again and again. This is the silent damage of broken boundaries. Not just the behavior you tolerate, but the beliefs you slowly start to form about yourself. You begin to accept less. You begin to expect less. And over time, you forget what it feels like to be respected. But here's what the Stoics teach us. Your self-respect is not a luxury. It's a duty to yourself, to your mind, to your peace. Setting a boundary is not an act of aggression. It is an act of preservation. It is not about changing the other person. It's about protecting the space you live in mentally, emotionally, spiritually. The brain adapts to whatever environment it is placed in. If you live in disrespect, your mind starts to normalize it. If you live in emotional chaos, your nervous system begins to expect it. This is not weakness. It is biology. But just as the brain can adapt to pain, it can also heal through clarity, and clarity begins with boundaries. You must understand, every boundary you set is a message to your subconscious. It says, I matter. It says, I will no longer shrink myself to avoid making others uncomfortable. It says, this is what I allow. This is what I refuse. And the more you reinforce that line, the more your confidence returns, the more your peace stabilizes, the more you begin to walk with quiet authority. Yes, some will resist. Some will accuse you of being cold, distant, ungrateful. But those reactions are not about your boundary. They are about their loss of access. And if access to you depends on your silence and submission, then their presence is not love. It is control. And you are not here to be controlled. You are here to live with integrity. The kind of integrity that chooses discomfort over dishonor, that chooses clarity over confusion, that chooses the long path of healing over the short fix of appeasement. So what does a real boundary sound like? It is not a threat. It is not a scream. It is a calm statement of truth. If you speak to me in that tone again, I will leave the conversation. If you continue to show up late and disregard my time, I will stop making plans with you. These are not ultimatums. They are declarations of self-respect. And if someone walks away because of your boundary, they were never standing with you to begin with. The people meant for your life will honor your standards, not resent them. They will adapt. They will grow, but the ones who relied on your silence will fall away. Let them. That is the shedding of what no longer serves your highest self. Remember, the goal of a boundary is not to punish, it is to protect. Protect your energy. Protect your dignity. Protect your future from being dictated by the disrespect of others. And each time you hold that line without apology, without explanation, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was lost in compromise. That is Stoic strength. Not loud, not aggressive, but steady, unmovable. A quiet refusal to betray yourself one more time. Let them feel the shift. Let them witness the line. And let your unwavering presence be the final word. 2. They were only sorry they got caught. This is where the mask slips. When someone who harmed you starts apologizing not because they understand the pain they caused, but because their access to you is now threatened, their regret is not rooted in growth. It's rooted in exposure. Their sorry is a strategy, not a transformation. And if you accept it without consequence, you're not forgiving them. You're training them to believe they can injure you, manipulate you, disrespect your boundaries, and still be welcomed back with open arms. That's not healing. That's submission. And that submission will slowly break you from the inside out. You see, we've been conditioned, especially as we age. Especially those of us who try to live with empathy and grace, to believe that withholding forgiveness is a form of cruelty. That silence is bitterness. That consequence is revenge. But that's a lie. Forgiveness without boundaries is not love. It's self-abandonment. It's spiritual erosion. And every time you let someone escape accountability, you become a little smaller. You second-guess your instincts. You gaslight your own memory. You start saying things like, maybe I overreacted. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I should give them another chance. But deep down, your soul knows the truth. You are not at peace. You are under pressure. The pressure of pretending something didn't happen just to keep the illusion of connection alive. The Stoics never taught that we must accept abuse in the name of virtue. In fact, they taught the opposite. They taught that virtue is found in clarity, in self-respect, in choosing what is right over what is easy. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that you have power over your mind, not outside events. But what many forget is that your boundaries are also part of your mind. They are lines drawn, not in anger, but in understanding. Understanding that if someone violates your trust and faces no consequence, they will do it again. And why wouldn't they? It worked. They lied, and you stayed. They betrayed, and you forgave. They crossed a line, and you erased it just to keep the peace. But peace built on fear is not peace. It is paralysis, and it shows up in subtle ways. In your hesitation to speak freely, in your anxiety before every conversation, in the silent rehearsals you run in your mind trying to find the perfect tone, the right words, just to avoid conflict. That's not love. That's control, and it's time you break free from it. Understand, this real change requires discomfort, not for you, but for them. If someone is truly sorry, they will accept the consequences of their actions. They will sit in the silence. They will respect your distance. They will not rush your process or demand your forgiveness. They will reflect. They will take responsibility. And most importantly, they will not repeat the same harm. But if instead they guilt you, accuse you of being cold, or pressure you to move on, then you have your answer. They were never sorry. They were just stalling, waiting for you to fold. So what do? You stop explaining. You stop negotiating. You let their behavior speak for itself. And you let your silence become your statement. That is where your power lives, not in punishing them, but in no longer protecting them from the weight of their own choices. That is Stoic justice. Clean, calm, controlled. It doesn't seek revenge. It doesn't explode. It simply steps back, withdraws energy, closes the door, not in hatred, but in wisdom, because you finally understand your peace is not a bargaining chip, your dignity is not up for debate, and your boundaries are not obstacles to connection. They are proof that you've risen above the chaos. And from this place of unwavering presence, you remind them, and you remind yourself, that consequences are not cruelty. They are clarity. They are the final line between growth and repetition, between true remorse and manipulation, between your past and your freedom. So, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And when they ask for forgiveness without change, let your silence be the answer. Let your absence be the lesson. Let your strength, not your softness, lead the way. 3. Enabling is not compassion. This is one of the most difficult truths to face, especially for those who lead with empathy. You want to help. You want to understand. You believe that if you just love them enough, stay patient enough, endure long enough, they'll change. But here's the truth you must confront. When you constantly absorb the consequences of someone else's behavior, you're not helping them evolve. You're helping them stay the same. And the longer you enable that pattern, the deeper both of you sink. What begins as compassion slowly becomes captivity. You start making excuses for their behavior, hiding their damage, shielding them from the fallout of their choices. But the reality is this: when people are never allowed to feel the full weight of their actions, they never feel the need to change. Why would they? You've become the buffer, the shield, the emotional sponge that soaks up every storm they create. They rage. You calm it. They lie. You explain it. They take. You offer more. And before long, you forget that your needs ever mattered at all. Stoic philosophy warns us against confusing virtue with weakness. True virtue is grounded in strength, not surrender. It's rooted in clear perception, not emotional fog. The Stoics would tell you, if your help allows someone to continue harming themselves or worse, continue harming you, then your help is not love. It is self-betrayal dressed in good intentions. Enabling is not kindness. It is fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of confrontation. Fear of letting go. But what you fear is already happening. You are already alone in this pattern. You are already carrying both sides of the relationship. You are already letting go of yourself so they can hold on to you. And what do you get in return? More chaos. More apologies with no follow-through. More promises wrapped in charm, followed by actions soaked in disrespect. You must understand that enabling does not protect them, it cripples them. When someone is shielded from the impact of their behavior, they stop growing, they stop reflecting, they become emotionally lazy, entitled to your forgiveness, convinced that no matter what they do, you'll always be there. And with each round of damage and repair, your standards begin to erode. You start accepting things you once swore you'd never allow. You begin rationalizing the irrational. You twist yourself into someone smaller, more tolerant, more agreeable, all for the sake of preserving a connection that's already broken. That's not compassion. That's codependency. The Stoic path demands courage, the courage to see things clearly and act accordingly. That means understanding that your silence is not neutral. It is an answer. It is permission. Every time you excuse bad behavior, you reinforce it. Every time you overlook a boundary, you dissolve it. And every time you call your tolerance love, you bury a piece of yourself under someone else's chaos. You are not here to be someone's emotional punching bag. You are not obligated to sacrifice your mental health just to keep someone else comfortable. Real compassion involves truth. And truth often sounds like this: I will no longer soften your fall. I will no longer explain away your choices. I will no longer stand in the way of the consequences you've earned. If they cry, let them. If they blame, let them. If they leave, let them. Because the people who truly value you will rise to meet your boundaries. They will grow when challenged. They will reflect when confronted. But the ones who panic, guilt trip, or lash out when you enforce a boundary, those are the ones who were never invested in mutual respect. They were invested in control. And when that control slips, their true nature is revealed. Let that be your clarity. Let it be the mirror that shows you who they are. And more importantly, let it be the moment you choose yourself. This is the shift, the turning point, the quiet storm inside you that says, no more. No more explaining. No more hoping. No more rescuing someone who isn't even reaching for the rope. You are not here to save them from themselves. You are here to reclaim your peace, to restore your balance, to protect your inner world from being overtaken by the emotional storms of others. Enabling may feel like love in the short term, but in the long term, it's poison. It keeps both of you stuck in roles that diminish who you were meant to become. So step back. Let their choices echo. Let their discomfort teach them. Let your boundary be the first honest thing they've had to face in a long time. Because only through consequence do some people ever awaken. And if they don't, that's not your failure. That's their path. The only thing you are responsible for is standing firm in your truth, with calm, with strength, without apology. That is not cruelty. That is wisdom. That is Stoic justice, decisive, clear, and unshaken. 4. Patterns of disrespect are deliberate. At first, it feels like coincidence. A missed call, a sharp comment, a broken promise. You tell yourself they're stressed, distracted, going through something. You justify, you excuse, you soften the impact just to preserve the connection. But over time, the pieces begin to form a pattern, one that no longer looks like chaos, but control. Disrespect, when repeated, is not an accident. It's a strategy. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The person who always interrupts you, always belittles your opinion, always shows up late, always forgets the things that matter to you. These are not flaws. These are choices. Calculated, repeated choices made in full awareness that you'll tolerate them, that you'll stay quiet, that you'll keep the peace. And the more you excuse it, the bolder they become. It's a slow erosion of your time, your value, your identity, until one day you wake up and realize this isn't a relationship built on love or mutual respect. It's a system built on your silence. Stoic philosophy teaches us to see clearly, not through the fog of emotion, but through the lens of reason, and reason reveals a hard truth. People show you exactly who they are through repetition. A one-time mistake can be forgiven, but a pattern that's a warning, a signal that you are not being valued, but used. Disrespect often disguises itself as forgetfulness, as sarcasm, as just being honest. But behind the mask is something more dangerous, a quiet confidence that they can hurt you without consequence, that you'll bend, you'll adjust, you'll make room for their chaos. And if you do, it becomes the blueprint of the relationship. Your boundaries become negotiable, your needs become optional, and your presence becomes taken for granted. This is why it's critical to stop rationalizing consistent harm. The moment you recognize a pattern, you must pause and ask yourself, if nothing about this person changes, what will this dynamic cost me over the next year, 5 years, 10? Your answer is your warning. Your discomfort is your compass. And your boundary is the only tool that can shift the direction, because people who are allowed to repeat harm will never choose change. Why would they? The system works for them, but it doesn't work for you. And every time you downplay their behavior, you delay your healing. Every time you explain it away, you reinforce the cycle. You must reclaim your authority, not through argument, but through action, not through anger, but through absence. When you stop giving your energy to patterns that drain you, you begin to restore the self-respect that years of tolerance tried to erase. Stoic wisdom calls us to act not out of impulse, but out of principle. And the principle is simple. If someone consistently shows you disregard, your responsibility is not to fix them. Your responsibility is to protect your peace. That means recognizing the difference between a mistake and a message. A mistake happens once, a message is sent through repetition. And if their message is that your feelings don't matter, your time doesn't matter, your dignity doesn't matter, then your message must be louder. It must be final. It must say, this ends here. Not because I hate you, not because I want revenge, but because I love myself enough to walk away from what no longer respects me. And in that silence, in that boundary, in that powerful refusal to participate in their pattern, you begin to heal. You begin to rise. You begin to remember who you are. 5. Reclaiming power and finding peace. There comes a moment when the noise fades, the apologies, the excuses, the empty promises, and all that's left is the silence inside you. That silence holds the truth you've been avoiding. You know what they did. You know how many chances they've had. And deep down, you know it will never change unless you do. This is the beginning of reclaiming your power. Not through dramatic confrontation, not through endless arguments, but through stillness, through a calm, final decision that you will no longer betray yourself in order to maintain what has already been broken. Your power returns the moment you enforce your boundary, the moment you say, I've had enough, and mean it, when you no longer ask for understanding or validation, or change from someone who has shown you time and time again who they truly are. In that moment, your energy begins to shift. You stop reacting. You stop chasing closure. You stop waiting for someone else to give you peace, and you begin creating it yourself. The Stoics taught that true strength lies in the control of your inner world. That peace is not the absence of chaos, but the mastery of how you respond to it, and you cannot respond wisely to what you constantly excuse. To reclaim your peace, you must first reclaim your standards. You must return to the truth you once abandoned to make others feel comfortable. And that truth is this: you deserve respect. You deserve honesty. You deserve consistency, not as a reward, but as a baseline. Anything less is not love. It is a transaction built on your silence. It is a relationship that only survives because you keep shrinking, you keep adjusting, you keep giving pieces of yourself away for the illusion of peace. But peace is never real when it costs you your self-worth. So ask yourself, if nothing ever changes, what will this relationship cost me? Your energy, your health, your joy. And is that a price you are still willing to pay? Because here's the truth: your life belongs to you. Your mind, your time, your body, your peace, all of it. And when you start living like that's true, everything changes. You stop negotiating with people who bring confusion. You stop explaining your standards to those who repeatedly violate them. You stop hoping for transformation from those who have no interest in growth. You simply draw the line, and then you hold it. They may get angry. They may call you harsh. They may accuse you of changing, but let them, because change is exactly what this moment requires. The version of you that tolerated disrespect is gone. The version of you that accepted emotional scraps has retired. In their place stands someone resolute, calm, clear, and unshaken. This is not the rise of arrogance. It is the return of dignity. It is the quiet power of a person who has remembered who they are, who no longer confuses guilt with love, who no longer confuses pain with loyalty, and who no longer waits for anyone else to give them permission to feel whole. From this place, peace becomes your natural state, not because others finally changed, but because you did, because you took full responsibility for your environment, your decisions, and your emotional reality. And the more you honor that truth, the more the right people, those who respect, uplift, and match your standard, begin to appear, not because you chased them, but because you made room for them by letting go of those who never deserved your presence. That is the power of boundary. That is the reward of consequence. And that is the essence of Stoic justice. It doesn't roar. It doesn't beg. It simply stands calm, firm, and free. Let's make one thing clear. Mercy is for the truly remorseful, not for repeat offenders who treat your boundaries like suggestions and your forgiveness like a guarantee. We've walked through 5 unshakable truths: why some people absolutely must face the consequences of their actions, from false apologies to calculated patterns of disrespect, from the erosion of your self-worth to the quiet danger of emotional enabling, and finally, to the power you reclaim when you choose yourself. Each reason builds to a single truth. You are not wrong for demanding respect. You are not cruel for enforcing boundaries. You are not heartless for choosing peace over chaos. You are awake. You are aware. And now, you are done waiting for others to change. From this moment forward, you are no longer begging for closure, no longer tolerating confusion, no longer shrinking yourself for the comfort of those who repeatedly fail to grow. You are standing in your truth, calm, firm, and unwavering. Because Stoic justice does not chase revenge, it enforces reality. It sees clearly, it protects peace with precision, and it moves forward with power. So remember this: when someone shows you who they are, believe it the first time. And when they ask for another chance without earning it, let your boundary be the answer. Let your silence be the shield. And let your steady self-mastery be the force that guides you. Not away from them, but back home to yourself. If this message reached you, hold on to it. You're not just watching a video, you're remembering your strength. Now, rise. Protect your space. And walk forward like the man who no longer apologizes for having standards,